All right, welcome back, everyone. I know we had a 12 o'clock with Mr. Kislin, but I'm really happy to be joined by someone who I consider a good friend and a serial entrepreneur, Yonathan. I call him Yoni Faber. Thanks for joining us.
No, thank you. Thank you for inviting me.
All right, so I always say, where in the world are you during this quarantine? So why don't you tell everyone where you're at?
I'm hiding here in Florida. I'm currently living in St. Petersburg. Yeah, it's great to be here. And yeah, that's it.
So you're West Coast, but Florida, not the coast
Yes.
of the country. Yeah, cool.
Right.
It's funny. Yesterday was two gentlemen from Long Island, and today is both people are in Florida. So I don't know. Maybe we're doing state themed days. I'm not sure. But
Maybe.
I wanted you to join us because you're a serial entrepreneur. You've taken some amazing ideas and founded some amazing and incredible startups in Brazil. You're always pitching the next idea and doing things. And I thought it'd be interesting to discuss capital right now, private equity, VCs, how things are going despite the coronavirus. And to just see what again, one of your startups was in telemedicine, and I thought it'd be very interesting for everyone to discuss that as well. So first of all, why don't you give us a little history of your careers, and then we'll jump in of your career and the different startups, and we'll discuss everything.
No, sure. So pleasure to be here. I went to law school, never really wanted to be a lawyer. And after that, I decided to move to California. I was living in California during the beginning of Uber and Lyft, and I saw them growing really exponentially fast. And I decided to kind of copy their business model and implement it in Brazil. So I did that back in 2012. And we pioneered the ride-sharing industry, not just in Brazil, but in South America. By the time of the World Cup, which was in 2014, we were already present in 6 different states in Brazil. Of course, looking back today, it's not such a big achievement compared to what Uber does, but looking back in 2014, it was very, very hard to convince someone to get into a stranger's car, saying that getting into our car was actually safer than riding a taxi. So we did that for about 2 years, and then Uber came in and killed us really, really fast. But I did learn a lot with that experience, and that's it. And after that, I moved back to New York. I went to work with Bitcoins. Got lucky because I got involved pretty early in the beginning of Bitcoins. After maybe 8-9 months working in that specific industry, I had the idea to launch an online therapy platform again in Brazil. We did launch that in 2016, and then we exited last year, in November of 2019. So I was involved in that for a little over 3 years and a half, almost 4 years.
That's amazing. I know your startup that you're talking about, the ride sharing in Brazil, you were ahead of the time. I know during the World Cup, you said you had about 500,000 users, which is super impressive. You went from the cover of the the Forbes and Entrepreneur of Brazil to my Facebook Live, so I appreciate it. I know we've come a long way.
No, thank you. It wasn't Forbes; it was a business magazine in Brazil, but it was still a very reputable magazine there. But one day, maybe 40 under 40. I can't hit 30 under 30 now, but maybe 40.
We still got time. So I want you to dive in, especially because a lot of your markets, your businesses, the market is Brazil and South America. So can you dive in a little bit deeper on Zaznu, which was your ride sharing app, and that trust factor, and talk about, because here it's okay, there's Uber, Wall Street guys are doing it, so maybe it's cool and I'll start it and I got a free ride, and there's that trust. We're used to getting in a cab, but can you talk about what getting in a cab was like in South America and in Brazil specifically, and how you had to build that trust?
Well, historically, being a cab driver in Brazil, it's considered a very, very low job. To that profession, you usually end up there if you can't go work in a different or another industry. So when we initially launched in Rio de Janeiro, which was the main city of the World Cup. And Rio is known for employing mostly ex-convicts, inmates, as taxi drivers. So the bar of entry for a taxi driver in Rio specifically is very, very low. people know that people are not comfortable riding in taxis in Rio. And when we launched, we leveraged that opportunity, saying that, listen, we background check our drivers much, much better than the taxi companies do, because it is widely known that most of the drivers are ex-convicts. Like, some people are good, but some people did really bad stuff, and we don't want you riding with that kind of people. So that's what we used in the beginning, like, to show that we had a really, really good vetting process. And from that, we just like started growing with students that needed to make money on the side. So we started launching inside of universities and offer it as not just as a ride sharing app, but also like as a carpooling app for like students. So students could go to the university, give a ride to one of their friends, and like make some money on the side. And then eventually they would like start driving after school and like after hours. So that's how we did it, and that's how we grew in Brazil.
That's amazing. And I was in, it's funny that you say that that's the, the lower, end, because I was in Uruguay, I think a year and a half ago. It seems like 10 years ago with the quarantine, and I was in an Uber, and my driver was like a PhD and engineer PhD from Venezuela, sadly, because he needed to feed his family, so he was down there. So I guess that's also changed throughout South America. So why don't we I need you to just settle something once and for all. Is it Brazil with an S, or is it Brazil with a Z?
It's S in Portuguese and Z in English.
Okay, fine. All right, settled, done. All right, yeah. I use the S's in all my notes and in postings, because So tell us about. I want to jump into telemedicine. It's a hot topic. You were ahead of the curve, and bringing telemedicine or online therapy to Brazil, to the South American market, and I know that you had lots of ideas for telemedicine. In addition to that, I have to say, like, you showed me the technology, and we had my phone and your phone out when you had Fallafreud, the online therapy, and it was 2 seconds, about 6 to 7 seconds faster to get an online therapist live, like we're talking right now, than to order an Uber. So, like, can you talk about that technology, how telemedicine evolved, and how it's going to evolve even further because of the virus?
Well, there's like going back to the beginning of Fallafreud, the experience was pretty similar to what we had with Zasner. We had a lot of like pushback from the class, the same way that taxi drivers did not like us offering private cars as a matter of transportation. The therapists in Brazil also didn't like that we were offering therapy online, because back in 2016, that was not the norm. People didn't trust, people didn't believe that it could be done, and people like bashed us a lot. And because of that, we also grew like very, very fast in the beginning. So towards like the third year of operation of Fallafreud, after having like a few, last year, like towards the end of the year, we had 1.5 million users. And once we crossed maybe like 700,000 to 800,000 users, we had a very large pool of users, active users, and also a very large pool of active therapists. And one of the main complaints that we had from our users was that most of them were anxious. They would come into the platform, they would complete the profile, they would answer all of the questions that we had in order like to match you with the best therapist. But then eventually it would take you like 24, 36 hours to actually be paired with the therapist and hear from the therapist. And by then, your anxiety is through the roof. Like, you already don't want to talk to a therapist anymore. You found something else to do, and then you gave up on that like spark. Like, you don't really want to explore that opportunity anymore, and then you just give up on therapy, and then you just don't do it. So after surveying like many users, we learned that one of the biggest gaps that we had was between the user coming into the platform, making the payment, and actually being matched with the therapist. So after we had like this large pool of users, large pool of therapists, we changed the business model of the platform, where we relied on hundreds of like online therapists simultaneously, and hundreds of users coming in every day looking for a therapist. So basically the way we did is we applied the same Zasnu/Uber approach that we had, where you click a button and then we're going to find a therapist for you in seconds. And the therapist let's just compare it like to the Uber drivers now. The one who picks up the call first is actually the therapist that is going to work with you. So the way we did it is you would have to complete your profile. You would have to answer all of the questions, the qualifying questions about why is it that you're looking for therapy, what is it that you want to get from therapy, all of like the qualifying questions. And then after that, like we would know like we should pair you with this kind of like therapist, this, and this therapist. And then once you press the button to call, we would call like 5 therapists first, and then one of the 5 therapists had 10 seconds like to pick up the call, and then the average wait time was between 3 and 6 seconds. So between you clicking the button and a therapist showing up live with you, it was 6 seconds. So we went down from like 24 36 hours to 6 seconds, and that's when we were able like to increase our NPS by our NPS in the beginning was like close to 60 70, and by the end of the year we were doing like 94 97, so which is almost perfect. So that's a little bit of what we did.
What's the next step, and what's going to happen next with telemedicine? Obviously the use case is proven. You know, like my 4-month-old was sick, he had corona. I've been talking about that on here. Like the first appointment was done through telemedicine, and then we went in person. Like what do you think is, you know, I guess everyone has buy-in now, right? And for you as someone who recently exited, is it like, oh, like I can't believe like everyone's seeing what I'm seeing now, or what I saw?
Right. Well, there's still a lot of skepticism behind telemedicine. There are like definitely some areas of the telehealth that can be explored online and some that cannot. But I believe that in the future, the majority of like the appointments will be conducted online. We saw that in the beginning. I really like the telehealth / mental health space, but people are still not ready for that kind of like large adoption. People come in, they're anxious, they look for a quick fix, they feel better, and then they leave. When it comes to like telemedicine with like doctors, which is something that it's not like a very recurring service, people will use it, and they're gonna come back when they need it again, and they will come back when they need it again. Differently from therapy, people come in because they solve their issues, and then they leave. So I'm pretty bullish in the telemedicine space. I own some stocks on Teladoc. I'm very happy with the results in the company in the last like 4 or 5 months with like 2020. And I believe that telemedicine will be a significant part of like the health systems in the future, maybe like 5 to 10 years from now.
And what applications do you see being like, what's in as far as telemedicine, what can be done, and what are the outliers that can't be, like, what in 10 years from now? Like I asked Dr. David Rosen, who joined me last week, who's on the front lines, and I said, do you think, and I'm asking you, like there can be, like I don't have an Apple Watch, but someone who has an Apple Watch, it's monitoring your heart rate, it's monitoring your health. It can share some information, but if you had a stethoscope that can connect to your Apple Watch or Bluetooth, and that could send for, listen to your chest and send other diagnostic information to physicians, like, do you think that that's what it's going to be like, and what doesn't that cover?
Well, number one, I think that telemedicine is going to change the way doctors interact with patients, not just because of like the technology itself, but we're lucky to be present in the coast of the country, but there's also like millions of people who are living like in between the East and the West Coast that don't really have access to really good doctors in those parts of the country. So I think that the number one thing that telemedicine is fixing, not just in the US, but also in Brazil, I know a lot more about Brazil, is that if you live in a city like where I'm from, Brazil, I'm from Manaus in the middle of the Amazon, we are technically a developed city, but we're nowhere close to what São Paulo is. If I want to see like a top-notch doctor, I have like to get on a plane and fly 4 hours to see a doctor in São Paulo and spend like a couple $1,000s for that appointment. But on the other side, if I have access to telemedicine, I can just do that over Skype, Zoom, or whatever, and consult with that doctor online. Talking about IoTs, like the Apple Watch or whatever kind of like device, I really like the idea behind Theranos. It was a big fail, but I believe that in the future, when we are able like to develop that kind of technology the way that Elizabeth designed, I think that we will be able to have a daily tracking mechanism that like knows exactly how our body is doing. And if something goes wrong from one day to the next day, that will be automatically sent to a doctor and the doctor will like contact me. So I believe that with that kind of technology in the future, we'll be able like to stop like development like cancer, like or multiple diseases. And there's like the future is it's going to be completely different from what we have today.
That's good to know, because a lot of people who don't want to go to the doctor, who want to rely on technology. And I think if we know every day, and we can take a baseline and know every day, where we're at. Your light just got way better.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because I changed the screen.
Yeah. When no, I mean, I think it's really important. That that telemedicine is taking hold, and I think that a lot of folks will be healthier. And I agree. Like the coverage gaps that you were talking about is also interesting in an angle that I didn't even think about. But that's awesome. You could, from the Midwest, you can see a physician, in New York, the
Right.
specialist, the top cardiologist, whatever it is.
There's also like surgery being performed remote. You can have like a heart surgery with like a surgeon from like Germany or like in Israel, like or anything like back in Connecticut or New Jersey where you were now. So it's a lot will change.
So let's. You mentioned Brazil a couple of times and being from the jungle. I wanted to ask. I know that your sister is a physician. Has she been dealing with Corona down there and on the front lines, and what's the situation in Brazil like versus the U.S.?
Right. So Brazil now is one of like the worst outbreaks that we're seeing in the world right now. I think Brazil is like the 5th or the 6th in the list of like most impacted countries. And my city in special is the worst in Brazil right now. So we're not a developed city. It is a big city. There's like 2 million, 2.1, 2.2 million people in my city, but it's nowhere close to what São Paulo or New York is. And we don't have enough health workers. We don't have enough hospital beds. We don't have enough ICUs. We don't have enough ventilators. We don't have anything. Like we have just like the basics there. So my sister, she works in the ER. She's a ER surgeon. So she's not really working directly with people coming in because of the COVID. But she's seen how many people are coming through the door every day. The situation got out of control in our city. So we are seeing between 100 and 150 new deaths every day. And that number is still going up. And yeah, it is a very sad moment for my city. But I believe that this is going to blow away very soon.
Well, as I've said in the past, all of our frontline healthcare workers, and to your sister, we commend and salute all of them, because they're the ones who are. This is a war that they're fighting for us and on our behalf. To protect everyone. So thank you to her.
Yeah. And one of the biggest issues, which is something that we are seeing here, is because of like underpaid, underemployed, not enough like hospital beds, not enough this, not enough that. One of the biggest problems too is that the doctors in Brazil, they don't really have enough protective supplies. So they don't have masks, they don't have gowns, they don't have booties. So it became really hard for the doctors like to work there. So if it was hard here in the US, you can imagine like in the developing countries. So it is a really bad situation there.
Is it tough for you to see from afar, or you?
Well, in the beginning, like it was like it is and it's not. Like I know that my family is safe. They're following like the instructions. They know that they should be inside. But in the beginning, they just didn't care. They were like, "Oh, we're gonna do this, we're gonna do that," and it took them like a while, like to realize that this is not just like a flu, that it's something like very dangerous. And I'm happy that no one in our family got sick yet, or if they did, they didn't show any symptoms. I believe that I got sick after I came back from Brazil, but it was a very, very minor flu or cold. I don't really know what it was. I can't say what it was, but I know that I felt differently from the last few times that I got sick. But for me, it was just something, I don't know. I tried to get tested here in the US. You have to go through like many hoops to get tested. So I don't think I will know anytime soon if I had it or I didn't have it. But yeah, so let's see.
I plan on going to Mount Sinai to give some plasma in the next week or two, because
No.
yeah, we definitely had it. I got confirmed, and it was definitely
Yeah.
jumping through a lot of hoops to get tested, but
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
I got a positive.
Yeah.
But I'm happy we're past it now and that we can do this. So tell everyone and tell me about, like, what's your next venture? You're, again, serial entrepreneur, Zaznu, Follow Freud, many other ideas, Bitcoin. What's the next thing?
So after like we got out of the company in the end of last year, I decided I actually wanted to take 1 year to just like chill and like and travel and like enjoy my baby son. Like he's 8 months old now, so I wanted like to just relax. So we took off to Portugal. We were there for a month, and 2 weeks in, I was like, shit, I can't. I need to do something. Like I can't just like be here and like I'm bored. So I called my partner when back in 2019, like the beginning of 2019, we started like brainstorming on other ideas that we could pursue and connect to our network, to our product. And one of those products was a monthly subscription service for people with chronic diseases. So individuals with diabetes or heart diseases or mental problems or like any kind of like chronic diseases, these kind of people, they rely on medicine every month. So they have to get that med every month after month until the last of their lives. So that was one of the products that we wanted to invest and connect with Follow Freud. And now that's what we're working on. So basically, we are going to start supplying meds to people with diabetes, heart issues. There's a list of like other chronic diseases that we're going to work with now. We're going to offer a service very similar to what PillPack does, which is you come to the platform, you say that I have this, and that disease, I need this, and this medicine, and I need to take it at 8 a.m., 10 p.m., and 2 p.m. And then we're gonna package the meds the way you need it, and then we're gonna send you a monthly box with all of the pills that you need. And then we're also gonna send you notifications reminding you to take the pills. And if you don't engage in the app saying that you took the pills, someone from our team is gonna call you to remind you like, hey, did you take your pills? Did you take it? Yes. So I'm gonna go on the system here and like make a note that you took your pills. So we know, and then we're helping you to keep track of like what kind of meds you're using. We are in the process of like closing a deal with like the largest pharmacy company in Brazil, like CVS, Walgreens here. The largest pharmacy in Brazil got interested in this business, and it is a multi-billion-dollar industry. Like it's a very, very large industry. I was never in anything like this before, nothing as big as this. I don't really know a lot about medicine, but I'm surrounding myself now by like people from the industry. Like we're hiring people that know the next steps that we should be taking. So I believe that if one day I'm going to be a billionaire, it's going to be now. I don't think I'm going to have to work and like die, like swim and die on the beach. I don't know how you say it in English, but
yeah. I mean, and it's crazy to think that like this is a bigger market, because you're talking like you had a user base of 500,000 with Zaznu. You had 1.5 million users with Follow Freud. I mean, even like to get to that point and stewarding that kind of company is huge for anybody else. So like now you're saying you're jumping into an even bigger market. I mean, what's the market size if you can, capture market share?
Right. So in the end, it all comes out to the total addressable market, right? So that's a metric that we use to evaluate if the market is big enough. When I started like Follow Freud in 2016, I didn't really know what was like the market for therapy, because it's such an offline industry that it's also like a very private thing that you don't talk about it. So you don't know how much is in that industry. So we always assumed that there was like maybe like $1 billion in that industry. So that's what we assumed that it was Brazil. So in that case, doing online therapy, following the standards for like a US company needs to be in order to become a unicorn, we're never going to be a unicorn. Fast forward to what we're doing now, the industry is worth between 120 and 160 billion dollars. And the partner, the company that is investing in us, they are the largest. They have like the largest share of the market in Brazil, and we believe that if we can operate with them and deliver the product the way we want to do it, we're talking about like penetrating a large portion of their active customers that they already have in their database. So we'll see where we're going to go, but it's going to be a much bigger operation compared to what I've done before.
So your market's already set with this partnership, and like with the groundwork that you've already laid with
Right.
your other two companies, like
Right.
you have this reputation, and now you can, you have this partnership that could lead to great success, which is awesome.
Right. So it took me years like to get to this point, like knowing people and like networking and like building something and not being very successful, but like being successful at the same time. And those steps like led me to where I am right now. So approaching this pharmacy, let's call it, I was going to say pharmaceutical, but approaching this pharmacy and actually have them interested in what I was doing and having that validation, it's just like an indication of what we've done and where we're going now.
So I'm gonna turn us on a dime. Off of that, a lot of entrepreneurs, startup founders, like we're hungry, we're driven, we want to make moves right now. We're impatient. I'm certainly impatient as a founder. What would you tell now that you're getting these big deals and these relationships and roads are easier for you and doors are opening, what would you tell your 20-year-old self as a startup founder?
Ooh, if I could go back 14 years now, patience, research, working on MVP, making sure that you have a viable product that someone wants to pay for, that you're solving a problem for someone. Because if you're not solving a problem, you're not gonna be able to charge for that. And once you identify a market, you need to make sure that the market is big enough. When we did the ride sharing, again, it was a big market, but we didn't know how big it could be. We know that today Uber is a multi-billion-dollar company. Therapy, again, it was also a market that I couldn't really value the size of the market, but I really wanted to do it because I had a personal connection with therapy. But again, I should have done my proper research before going and diving, investing a lot of my time and my money, because it's not just about the money, because money comes in and just goes, but it's also time. Like, so I invested 4 years of my life that I'm never going to come back. But the 4 years that I invested in that business taught me a lot that I'm going to use the learnings from that experience into this new opportunity now. But I think like the key things that needs to be taken in consideration is the market big enough? Because if you're going for a market that is not like worth a few $1 billion, because realistically, if you tap into 1% of the market, it is already a huge success. You don't want to tap into a market that is a $100 million market, because that implies that you're only going to have a $1 million opportunity. And if you were going to explore only $1 million opportunity, you're never going to be like a huge successful business. So you have to aim for something that is like huge, because if you do something that is relatively good, there is a high probability that you're going to bring in a few $100 million in revenue, and that company can potentially be worth 6, 7, 10 times your EBITDA. Yes. So look for like a big enough market. Make sure that you validate your ideas and your hypotheses. Talk to the ideal customer. The customer needs to know. You need to find the exact customer, build a persona, make sure that that product solves the problem for that persona, and start scaling slowly. When you figure out all of those questions, all of those problems, then you go after money. You have the FFF, family, friends, and fools. So you're going to go after family, you're going to go after friends, and then eventually you're going to go after the fools or friends with your family. And you're going to get some money from those guys, and you're going to start. And then you're going to raise a little bit of money, like $50,000, $60,000. And then you're going to get angel investment, and then you're going to get seed investment. And then you're going to go to Series A, Series B, Series D. And eventually you're going to be acquired, or you're going to die. And so that's it.
That's a chock full of good advice. We should turn that into a clip and share that. That's amazing. Now, since we're on that one, and we only have a few minutes left, I'm going to ask you, like, but how about now? Like, let's say someone started founded a startup in in January, February of 2020, and they're just getting off the ground. We're gaining traction now. They're things have gone to shit a little bit, and they're nervous. Like, how would you motivate someone or advise them to to stick with it and to get through?
Well, things gonna change after this virus goes away. I don't think the world will ever be the same again. I think that a lot of industries will be created after the virus, and a lot of industries will die. So I don't really know what's gonna happen. What I know is online will always be there. One thing, like looking back in the last 2, 3 months, online consumption has gone through the roof. People are still buying. People are buying a lot. So today I had some furniture delivered, and I asked the truck driver, like, so how's it going? Like, how many deliveries are you doing today? And then he told me, we've never made it. We're doing more deliveries now than we did a couple months ago. And the reason is people are bored and people are like buying the things that they want to buy because they can't really go out. So the thing is, my advice is patience. I've also been like pretty impatient in the last month and a half because I really wanted like to be in Brazil right now, working on the product, working on operation, hiring people, but it's momentaneous. So if you are involved in an industry that got that is actually not really working right now, just take some time, evaluate again, make sure that that industry is still going to exist after the this whole thing goes away. And if it is, if you believed in this vision, this idea like 2, 3 months ago, and if you think that this is still going to exist in the next few years, there's no reason like to jump the ship. So just have patience. And but if you think it's not going to be a viable industry in the future, just invest your time in something else, because we only live once, right? So I don't want to.
As Kevin O'Leary says, take it behind the barn and shoot it, right?
Right. So you don't want to waste your time. Like your time is the most valuable asset that you have.
You can't get that asset back. No way.
Right. So
all right. So now, as we close, tell us any hobbies that you've picked up along the way, or any fun things that you've been doing, down in Florida while quarantined.
Right. So we've been in Florida for almost a year now. We recently bought a house just before. No, thank you. Just before the virus hit, we got a 3.5 mortgage, which is unheard. When you take the inflation, you compound that, like we're basically borrowing free money from the market. So I'm very happy with that. There's nothing that makes me happier than like free money.
Thank you, Jerome Powell. Thank you.
Right. So we got like free money for the house. We've been slowly furnishing the house, working on the yard. We're probably going to start a garden. So where we're going to grow some veggies and like leaves and like stuff. And most recently, like a week and a half ago, I decided like to start playing the piano. So I bought a digital piano, which is similar to a keyboard, but it's just called digital piano. Started taking classes online on an app called Simple Piano, and I can call myself like the next Star is Born. So, so if things go bad, like I'll be a piano player in like a year, 2 years from now.
I look forward to your concerto number 5.
Right.
And how about and also, like, you got to talk about it before we end. I mean, you also said that you've been able to sneak out of your quarantine, go to a private beach, and do some kite surfing.
Right.
So tell everyone about that.
So one of the things that I really like is the ocean, and we're not far from the ocean here. Like we're a mile and a half out. So I started kite surfing when we moved here last year. I'm still not that great, but I can ride. And I made some friends, some connections here. And every time that there's good wind, people message and say like, oh, let's go to this location because this location is not closed. Oh, let's go to that spot over there. Let's jump the fence and then get on the water. So that's what I've been doing for the last month and a half or so. But we're lucky that
you were at spring break. No, I'm just kidding. I'm kidding.
No. So, and then the beach is just open this Monday now. So I think I'm not going to go to the water now because there's probably going to be a lot of people there that wasn't before, that they weren't there before.
Did you kite surf with a mask or no mask?
No mask, no mask, because you're just on the water by yourself. Like you're not close to anyone.
So as we wrap up, where can people? Do you want to share the name of the new business, or do you want to? Is it still hidden?
No, it's called pacotinho. It means little package in Portuguese. We are still working on the product. We're not ready. It is a very complex operation. It's going to take a while, like, to get it off the ground. Mostly, it's because of like the machines that we're buying. They're coming from the US, and the factory is closed. So I'm waiting for those guys like to resume operations so we can actually place the orders. And anyway, we're gonna be live and running in the next like 3 to 4 months. That's the plan.
So you don't have a domain to share yet, right?
We do. pacotinho.com.br. .com.br. pacotinho.com.br.
Awesome. We'll be sure to check it out, and obviously looking forward to seeing you enter another market and enter the same market with another awesome startup.
Yeah. No, thank you. Thank you.
Yoni, thank you for joining. Thank you for sharing amazing insights, about the startup world and life, and you've had an amazing career, and you'll retire 40 under 40. Don't worry, I'll still be working. You'll come back for another retirement.
Thank you. Thanks for the opportunity. You guys take care.
Man, be well.
Thank you.